Welcome back. We're out in the greenhouse today as usual. I'm going to be taking some temperatures from a few things, and then we're going to talk about what we're planting, what we've planted, what we're going to transplant, and what didn't grow the best, and just basic in general observations and how we're going to progress into the winter here trying to grow. Now if that sounds interesting, please consider subscribing to the channel. I've got my little water system here. Now we're just barely trickling water in here, but we've got some decent temperatures coming off of this water out of this little solar heating box. Now we are entering a colder time. It focuses on that. We've got 86, if you can't read that. So we've got 86 degrees coming out, and the water itself is sitting about 58 degrees. So we're getting a decent heat transfer just through this little window. This thing runs every 15 minutes and it sits for 45. So it really builds some steam and puts some heat into our little tank here. I mean, we got 110, 120 gallons of water in here. So any BTUs we can put into this tank, we need them. So let's head on down real quick. I want to check out our geothermal, and we're going to kick it on real fast. So deep down in there, we're sitting about 59, 60 degrees. So whatever it's sitting, about 4 or 5 feet down there under the tunnel, that's what temperature is coming out of there. I can use my other thermometer, but I like to read what the actual walls are. Before we set up tunnels and lights and all the accessories to keep these plants growing into my special light box here, I've got all the lights from last winter that we were running. Those nice LED lights, they did help a lot throughout the winter. Last winter was the first winter we experimented with the lights to be able to operate and to use a little bit of on-grid power. So that's about the only cost that we incurred last winter, was about $80 worth of electricity through the entire winter to operate those things. Now we've got this tunnel, and this tunnel will be going up right down this entire bed. We're going to use tunnels all the way down. We've got a ton of tunnels outside there I've got to clean off behind our large spool of junk here. All greenhouse related items. We are getting in gear. We just got to redig our trench there. We filled this trench back in so we didn't have any rodents or anything coming in and out. So now that we've got the basics of where our barrel is going to be, I can kind of experiment and get everything situated. Stay tuned for the compost heating videos coming. So as I was saying, we will have these tunnels, and we will be able to push a lot of heat from our stove with the fan and our heated tank, compost heat, etc. through all of these tunnels, and compost heat for our little fish pond. So every winter we really like to share our thoughts, ideas, experiments with everybody here on the internet. So this year I've gotten ahead of the game. I planted a ton of seed already. So first things first, what grew best for us was the kales, the lettuces, the leeks, onions, chives, collard greens, corn salad, perpetual chard. Swiss chard didn't grow the best. It didn't like to have any type of cold temperature. It just wanted to stunt it and lose leaves. So we had a lot of success in the greenhouse, as you can see over videos from the years past. One thing that didn't grow was peas. Our peas, they would grow, and as soon as the ground got cold outside or they felt any type of cold air, they just shut down. I mean, we kept the greenhouse above 42 degrees guaranteed throughout the entire winter, so they really didn't like the cold temperatures. It's kind of like basil. Basil will just turn brown and wilt back at the 42 degree mark. Even though it's not frost, it's still cold enough to negate those warm weather crops. By using the tunnels in here, we can lower the ceiling of our greenhouse, blow heat into them, and keep any trapped rays or any extra heat lower and closer to the ground and the plants where you want. I also wanted to state that a bunch of different tatsoys, the Chinese cabbages and lettuces, the tatsoys did really well in here, and I've got a bag of seeds. I got a ton of seeds left to plant. We've filled this entire bed with lettuces, kales, turnips, 7-top turnips. We may have thrown some radishes in here. We threw a bunch of lettuce in the midst of our leeks over here. Now I want to talk about leeks real quick before we move on. I had to grab a brick to sit on. My knees were killing me. We've got all these heading collards over here we can rearrange. So I was on to leeks. Leeks are high in vitamin K, E, C, A, and B6. It also contains manganese, iron, copper, folate, and lots of other trace minerals and nutrients. So I would consider it a superfood because just 1 cup can get you almost a daily dose of those minerals and nutrients. So being able to eat leeks fresh out of the greenhouse, whether cooked or raw, we will eat them, and that is one staple that we always grow in the greenhouse because they are very, very cold tolerant, which means that as long as we keep it warm, they grow profusely. Some of the warmer season crops, they grow very, very slowly in a colder or cooler greenhouse. So before we set up any lights or any tunnels or anything really, we got to get plants in the ground. So we've got all these heading collards here. I've just got a whole flat, and they are all bunched together. They may have been in here for an extra week or 2. So they went a little bit too long, but these are going to be great starts to transplant into the greenhouse here. But they are nice and healthy, and we will be able to throw a few of these in and dot them throughout the greenhouse. The heading collards were a great producer for us over the last couple years. So we want to make sure we have the staples that we grow every year and then just kind of add to it. And I want to, everything looks nice and neat and in rows and it's sprouting. I just broadcast all of this seed and it's going to come up and it's going to be one massive bed. I want to oversow. I want to plant as much as I possibly can. It holds thermal mass, whether you think it does or not. It keeps that airflow down low to the ground, and it could draw pests, and it could be harder to spot those pests if you have them planted heavily like that. And we've noticed some issues over the years using a nice garlic spray and continuing to clear the beds. And you got to make sure you harvest the crops too. So being able to harvest, you're getting hands-on with the plants, you're seeing them, and you can clear any type of bugs or handle the problem as it arises. I just want to jump down here and show, you can see, I'll try and zoom in here, just thousands of little sprouts popping up. Basically every little dot you're seeing is sprouts popping up through this bed here and into the leeks. We've got lots of little lettuces popping up. It does not look like much, but give it a week or 2 and those will be full-fledged plants that we will be able to see and harvest from very soon. So we filled this bed with compost and used old recycled potting soil. So with those two together and our natural soil, we can just heap these up. We have solved any pest issues in the greenhouse, and it's cool enough outside that all the pests are pretty well done for, all the bugs that are eating our crops. So we're going to plant pretty darn heavily. I've got a whole flat of these that are dedicated to just going into this greenhouse. I've gotten some questions where people are asking me, why don't I just put this stuff outside and grow under single or double little tunnels? Save pooey with the whole greenhouse. Man, I would if I could, but I have this huge space and I can grow in it basically year round. I'm not going to give that up to go try and pull tunnels in the middle of winter. I've done it before. I did it as experiments, and we have very, very old, early, poorly filmed videos where we did grow in double layer tunnels outside, and dealing with the snow and ice in winter, it's not fun. We did get some crops to survive, some kales and shards and stuff, but it's just not worth it. I'd rather be able to come in here, lift up a lid on my bed, and be able to harvest all that I need, or come out here and cook right out of the greenhouse in the middle of winter onto the stove, grab some of our chicken eggs. It's very, very nice to have a greenhouse structure. It's nice to have those beds outside dedicated with rows and tunnels. Having a greenhouse is a ton of work as prep. Once you get everything done and all the work's done, all you got to do is come through and harvest very, very simply. You don't have to lift and dig through a bunch of snow and ice to be able to get your tunnels up. You can deal with ripping poly, and then you lost your entire crop outside. There's just a whole bunch of factors that lead me to grow inside my greenhouse year round. A few more plants that we've grown and experimented with are broccoli, big heading crown, sun gold broccoli, or whatever that one is, and then you've got the rapini broccoli, your stir-fry broccoli. That one did pretty darn well for us. Like I said, all the tatsois did well. we got a super windy day. You can see the poly kind of getting shifted around. It's like 30-40 mile an hour gusts out there. We had rain and it's been cold. I can hang out in the greenhouse in a t-shirt and shorts when it's freaking freezing outside. So back to what I was talking about. We can grow kohlrabi, and all of the brassicas will pretty well do well as long as you have good oxygen flow. I know some of the brassicas don't like a heavy moisture environment, and in the greenhouse there is very high moisture and humidity in the winter time, as we don't really vent the greenhouse very often, just when I'm opening doors, or if I have a day warm enough I will vent it and get fresh air. But other than that, there's fresh air coming through the cracks. We've got a fresh air return to our stove, so we're not suffocating in here, and neither are the plants. Now I will state again, planting leeks, onions, ramps, chives, any type of garlic, you can put that right amongst all of your crops, and you can get a better companion planting with that, better success rate for pests and all the like. It really does make a difference, companion planting, and especially in a greenhouse in such an enclosed environment and a controlled environment. Now, why does the onion family work so well? It is the sulfur smell. It's actually the sulfur that keeps the other plants away, the onion smell. So whenever I am out here and I have all my crops going in winter, I will come by and I'll just pull the tops off some onions, or just kind of roll them up in my hands to get that odor just radiating through that little bed, and it does make a big difference. One thing I want to state is don't forget your perennial herbs. So we have a whole bed over here that I can show real quick. Oh! So we've got this bed right here, and it is not by any means finished, completed, or full. So we've got this little pool area where I've just been filling water and letting it pool up and just slowly soak in. We have all of these perennial crops that are doing well, and we've put these in here about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. So we've put all of our lavenders, rosemaries, yarrows, some hyssop, red vein sorrel, bunch of elderberries, a bunch of elderberry cuttings, just a ton of stuff that we don't want to waste, or we're not ready to plant. We don't have a spot yet. So this is just a heal-in bed, and we will heal all of these perennials in for the winter time. So we have access to those herbs, medicines, and roots throughout the winter. We plant thyme, oregano. We will have all of our basic herbs that we use most of the time planted in this bed and have access to them year-round. Another main topic for growing in winter is growing a diversity of crops. I've listed a ton of different things, and I haven't covered nearly all of them. I would probably be listing them for 20 minutes if I had a list of everything we've ever tried or grown. So experiment, see what works in your area, in your greenhouse, in your grow house, whatever tunnels you got, whatever you're doing, just experiment. Try a diversity of crop. Let's take 10 different crops. You plant 10 different crops, all of them take off, they're all doing good. You notice that 2 or 3 of them really phase out as the colder temperatures and the lack of sunlight come on. That's why we use lights in the winter, to supplement a little bit of extra lighting into the nighttime. So if you notice that you've only got 7 crops doing well, that's your experiment. You say, I got these 7, monitor those 7 through the entire winter, see what does the best out of those, and then you can plant an abundance of those most successful crops and continue experimenting in other places. So as far as heating a greenhouse and growing in the winter, it can be very costly. So putting beds in here, putting lights in here, doing all of these free heating experiments with our stove, solar, passive solar, compost heating, and geothermal, we can achieve growing year-round in zone 5A, 4B here. So we have found success, and if I had solid walls on my greenhouse, I would be in business. I probably wouldn't even need to do all of those systems. I could probably get away with 1 or 2. So in order of importance, I've set my geothermal, turned it back on, doors are closed, it's chilly outside. So next thing we're doing is building that compost pile out back, and then we can route the heat from that, get all of that situated. And once we've got our compost heating complete and it is doing what it's supposed to, we are going to work on passive solar, getting all these tunnels set up and getting fully decked out for winter here. Providing heat to a greenhouse can be super costly, so being able to provide all of the heat to this greenhouse for maybe $100 investment off solar panels and pumps and stuff like that, that is not bad. And we've reused those systems for many years. Everything we've used for our compost heating system has been recycled over and over. We just keep adding solar panels and adding systems. So really, to invest in the compost heating, we get the wood chips for free, and we're just running all of the same equipment that we've had for years. So if you're in the situation where you don't get enough heat from compost, or you don't have the access to build a compost pile, you can always, when in doubt, use any passive method you can. Use all of the energy from the sun, and that's the biggest part of winter is we might go a month and a half without any direct sunlight. Everything is just coming through the clouds. We're just running minimalistic systems off of our solar panels to be able to keep this greenhouse running. So we've still got a lot of learning and development going forward as we build more greenhouses. We're going to build them dedicated for winter and share the whole process along the way. And I would like to state, we still got tomatoes down here, and we've had well below 30 degrees at night here. We can go check these guys out. So you can see the top of the tomato plant just looks super healthy. We've got a few dying leaves down here. We've got red tomatoes. It is just super awesome to be able to have that as an experiment. Now, I may keep that going as long as possible, but my tunnels come in and it's already past the tunnel height. I like to keep the tunnels right about here, so we will be changing the whole greenhouse up very soon. I can feel that geothermal blowing right up the shorts here, but I gotta be in frame. So we've got these red tomatoes coming on. That one was a little orange, but we've got ripe tomatoes in the greenhouse, and it has been freezing outside. Just having the greenhouse without doing any real heating, just the passive heat from the sun and the thermal mass of having a large space, large airspace, large floor space, all types of systems to be able to passively pull that heat and re-release it and act as a buffer for these plants that are very warm. We have a ton of tomatoes outside that are just brown, wilted, dead. All our basil's outside. Everything is toast now. So this is the last tomato plant on the homestead. That shows the importance of having a greenhouse in the first place. All we had to do was close the doors and we survived. I mean, we have double layer, which offers a lot more protection, but even in a single layer, this would probably be all right with freezing temperatures outside. As long as you had some sun the day before, your ground will hold a lot of heat as long as it's open surface. Concrete doesn't really do that. So our decision to heat our greenhouses as cheap as humanly possible allows us a little buffer in the winter time to be able to experiment and order some other things. So we've got a few cool items on the way, and I will release those in a video here soon. So we're going to be experimenting with some different stuff this winter, and I'd like to see how it goes. But until then, I've got a ton of these heading collards to dot throughout this greenhouse. I kind of let them go a little long, so now I'm having to separate them out and stuff. So we're going to throw them in some water and get them planted in this greenhouse. And if anybody had any questions on what I covered today, I kind of bounced around. This was just a quick rundown of pre-winter planting. We're right on the cusp of winter. It's about to turn really, really cold on us. So getting all of this done, we have to have something to be able to put the lights on and to cover up. If we don't have any plants, there's no point in putting all that effort into trying to protect plants. So we got to get ahead of the game. Hopefully all of these sprouts will be successful. We haven't had much pest damage after we used all of our garlic sprays. We had all those leafy green bugs, the little caterpillars from the moths just in here devastating crops. So being able to rid them from our greenhouse is a huge plus, especially as we're closing the doors. We don't want to trap them in here and let them eat our entire crops. So pest protection is a huge factor in the winter time when you're growing and getting everything started early. And I will see you guys in the next video with a few more items.